All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give our praise and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakakadash. I want to give double honor to my elder apostles, my elder bishops, the great millstone, who were well in teaching us the truth 100% securely. And I'd like to give a salutation to the men out there on the highways and byways pushing the truth throughout the four corners of the earth. And also, I'd like to give a salutation to the Akim and Aqua who are listening and studying to sort ourselves approved. This is Brother Bayon from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Hebrew Delight Camp, coming back to you with another quick lesson. And this is basically another quick lesson going into another of Satan's devices, all right? And when we're speaking about Satan, we're specifically talking about Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, because we understand that Satan means adversary, okay? Esau, Edom, everything he does is against Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. Okay, so with that being said, I'm on this podcast again from that at that boy will. This is fair use, not using it for any monetary gain. This is fair use. Okay, according to the Copyright Act of 1776, this is fair use. All right, and so as the scripture says in 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11, right, and it reads, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices," right? And so, being not ignorant of his devices, which meaning that we understand that he's going to use these devices to not only lead us astray from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, he uses it to sow discord among brethren, okay? He uses it to try to manipulate the population to fit his wicked agenda, okay? So these are all of the devices that all is ultimately going to lead to the MOTB, first and foremost. So, but I'm going to play a couple of these clips. Let me go back to about the 7-minute mark on here. And that was very interesting things that were played on this podcast. Okay, starting with the 7-minute mark. Okay. All right, let's get it.
By the state for theft. Rancher Gary Harrington built 3 large reservoirs on his own land to collect rainwater and snowmelt. He claimed the water was primarily for fire protection reserves and for providing water to wildlife. But the state called it theft and prosecuted Gary. A municipal code stipulates that all water within city limits, including precipitation, is part of the public water supply. The city requested the court order the removal of his collection system and impose a fine. Despite Harrington's repeated appeals, arguing, "The water fell on my land, I'm not selling it. I'm simply using it on my own property." The court ultimately rejected his claims. Harrington was found guilty on multiple charges, including unlawful appropriation of state water resources. He was sentenced to 30 days in jail and fined over $1,500.
Okay, so now you have that first incident where one of Satan's devices, and we go and we hit, and that's pretty much an unrighteous decree what we just witnessed on the first clip. Okay, so let's get Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 1, and it reads, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decree, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." Okay, so unrighteous decree is the fact that the state feel like they have a right to persecute someone for collecting rainwater on their own property, not only fining them $1,500 in 30 days in prison. Okay, and so why the whole time, the 30 days while he was in prison, I'm pretty sure they confiscated all of those boroughs that hard work earned, gutters and all of those things. I'm pretty sure they confiscated that. And so this is why this place got to go, man. All right. So here it is. You have these devils that have a God complex, or he think that they can control rainwater, and this is why the Lord said, pride goes before destruction, and he also said, "Woe unto them that strive with his maker." When you go into Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 7, I believe. Or is it 45? So like, hold on, let me look at that real quick. Isaiah. I think it's 45 and Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 9, it says, woe unto him that thriveth with his maker. Okay. And it says, let the potsherd thrive with the potsherd of the earth. Shall the clay say to him that fashioned it, what makest thou? Or thy work, he hath no hands. Okay. And so that's the pride of these devils who think that they can take control of what Yahweh Bashim Yahushua offer for the whole earth. Okay. He made the heaven and the earth. He made certain things to where you shouldn't have to pay for it. But here we are in this society where Esau and many devices is causing uh strife between men and so and it making it harder for people to actually make a living, you know. So, that's one little incident. All right, let's continue.
Incident sparked intense backlash. Residents said it was simply tyranny. If a person cannot own the rain that falls on their own land, what do they actually own? Oregon man.
This is unbelievable, unfathomable.
In 1945.
Okay, so yeah, and so that right there, what you just saw right there, it's gonna increase eventually. So it's already in certain states. All right, I'm not sure what the laws here in Oklahoma, but in certain states, I believe it's in California and states like Oregon, where it's illegal to collect rainwater. Okay, and so that's gonna drive that precept in Second Esdras territory, where it leads to seditions among men, invading one another, and then it goes into they shall now regard their kings and princes. The course of their actions shall stand in their power, which means people are going to start standing up and fighting against the government. They're already talking about it. Let's continue.
A French political theorist wrote a book explaining why government never shrinks back after a crisis. Every emergency since has proven his theory correct. You'd think a book called On Power, written right after a world war, would be about dictators. But the book isn't really about tyrants. Bertrand de Jouvenel's target was something more insidious: the emergency measures that never quite go away. De Jouvenel's argument is that power doesn't grow through conquest. It grows through crisis. Every emergency creates temporary agencies, temporary rules, and temporary budgets. And each one of them builds a permanent constituency that needs the emergency to keep existing. The crisis ends, but the bureaucracy doesn't. Income tax withholding started as a temporary wartime measure in 1943. Rent control in New York started the same way, as an emergency wartime rule. Entire COVID-era programs are still funded years after the pandemic ended. None of them were planned as permanent. All of them became permanent, because the Jouvenel's ratchet only turns one way. So ask yourself, what temporary measure is being passed right now? In 20 years, it'll probably still be here. Listen up, parents. Want to start building generational wealth and happiness for your children in less than 10 minutes? It'll probably still be here.
I mean, the jokes write themselves, bro.
I was able to access zoomed-in footage of every...
And that's what I wanted to get on to right here with the flock cameras. Okay, but it shouldn't surprise you with the emergency measures, because that goes into let's get this real quick. Second Esdras, no, not Second Esdras. This is Sirach chapter 12. Okay, when that guy went into those emergency measures, that's another one of their devices where they say never let a good crisis go to waste. Okay, and they always establish order, right? And they always have another saying, ordo ad chaos. All right, that's these devils. That's these devils in operation, the ones who running these whole governments, who's scheming and plotting. Okay, as a matter of fact, when you go and you read that Second Corinthians 2:11, it says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." Okay, when you go into that word devices, the Greek word noemata, noemata, or something like that, and it means thought, scheme, plans, or purpose. Okay, so these devils are always scheming, And it's no different from the serpent in the garden when he schemed against Eve, okay, who tricked her into biting that fruit, and then Eve turned around and gave that fruit to Adam, okay? And that's why it said the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which is going into an actual person who was very subtle in his ways, and he tricked people. He tricked people not only to trust him, but to trick them into all type of calamity, all right? They fall into all type of calamity, right? Because you actually further read on into that story, Eve, when Yahweh, the Heavenly Father, asked Eve, he said, "Woman, what didst thou have done?" And she said, "The serpent beguiled me." With that word beguiled means trick, okay? So, that's and even a Google definition of the word serpent, because a lot of people believe that Eve was talking to a literal snake. It was a person, okay? The Google definition of the noun definition, where it says a sly and treacherous person who gained your trust in order to betray it, okay? That's what that definition goes into, all right? So, but let's get this Sirach 12, and it's about the 17th verse. Right. So Ecclesiastica, aka Sirach, chapter 12 and verse 17, it says, "If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first," which is specifically talking about these devils who create these emergencies and they establish an order. Okay. "If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet he shall undermine thee." And that's exactly what that clip was about. He undermining not individually, but the whole government, the whole city, all right, the whole country. Okay, let's continue.
Every single person who walked on that trail over the last 30 days without using a password.
This guy is exposing a $7 billion surveillance company.
Myself, John Gaines, and Joshua Michael found close to 60 security vulnerabilities within or closely related to Flock Safety's ecosystem. We were able to connect to and completely take control of the ALPR cameras. We could view or modify the footage. We could install malware on them. We could view the hard-coded credentials that led to other places. And there was even one that allowed us to track the real-time GPS location of police vehicles. I published a selfie video, literally pulled from one of the newly deployed Flock cameras right down the road, and showcased how easily I was able to access zoomed-in footage of every single person who walked on that trail over the last 30 days without using a password. Some of these findings were reported to Flock directly, and some of them are now published and flagged by MITRE, which is part of Homeland Security to manage cybersecurity threats. Some of these are still rated today as high or critical vulnerabilities. Members of the U.S. Congress have cited my research in a published letter to the FTC calling for a formal investigation into Flock's negligence as a risk to national security. So how did Flock respond to all this? CEO himself claimed that Flock had never been hacked. I watched Flock representatives stand up at City Hall meetings just like this one, look people dead in the eyes, and despite evidence verified by MITRE, claim that Flock has never been hacked.
A few minutes later.
Yeah, there are not documented breaches online. There's documented attempts to intrude on a single camera online.
I want someone to help me understand, given the evidence that we produced, how anyone would think that signing more contracts with any third-party surveillance vendor would be a good idea without setting up an independent security and ethics audit first. I was able to access zoomed-in footage of
I got a partner who was telling me in Jefferson Parish, he stay in Metairie, that they basically fly the drones around his apartment, like he'll be on his balcony or whatever, and the police drones will literally they stop right in front of your damn window. Shit crazy, bro. What you doing, bro? And they're heat seeking. Not heat seeking, but they're they have the heat waves so they can tell if you in there or whatever, even through the walls. They pick up your heat signature.
the scary.
And this is exactly what we were talking about when we were going through on the highways and hedges, man. So they have it, and this is why we need Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah, man. So let's play this other clip, and I'm going to read one more precept, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this out because I got to get ready to clock in for work.
As part of about the 18 cops so far found to use the flock system to stalk their exes? And it wasn't just their exes they were stalking. And we're not just talking looking up license plates a couple of times. This one police chief in Kansas alone ran his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend's license plates hundreds of times, using the information to then hunt them down. The fact that this is becoming more common and more alarming, and the fact that it's not just their exes, these cops are now being found to be actively stalking via the flock cameras. This Missouri officer ran one woman's license plate over 300 times. Another officer in Florida running another woman's license plate multiple times, then planting an air tag on her, and then tried to get his colleagues to help him on stakeouts to continue to stalk her. This MPD officer wasn't even using it to track ex-girlfriends or current girlfriends. He was simply using it to track any woman he was interested in via the flock cameras. This 35-year-old officer was found to use the flock system to stalk his wife, his mistress, and his romantic rivals. There are now lists being put together of the amounts of cops who are using the flock system not to fight crime as it was intended, but what they're calling romantic stalking. This isn't even happening in certain towns or a handful of states. This is actually occurring across the country. The top 7 states being Florida, California, Wisconsin, Georgia, Kansas, Texas, Arizona, where these officers aren't just stalking women, they are stalking men too. The scariest part of
Hey, man, you know what's interesting? If someone that works at a hospital goes into your medical records for like any other reason than them actually having to, they can get in trouble and go to jail and get fired and all that kind of stuff. The police do it, you get a little note like this. Where's the real punishment? The police should get twice the punishment that a civilian would get for doing something like that, because you're supposed to uphold the law. But this is...
And that's never gonna happen. You know, when the police get up twice as much, because they the ones who enforce the laws. And this is why when you go into that second address territory, there try to be sedition among men. These are the very things that's gonna take place because of this. But again, this is why we need Yahweh Shah, man. And King David even says it. All right, when you read in Psalm 56. And he get praise to Yahweh Shah, okay? But we'll start from here. Psalm 56, and we'll start at verse 4, and it says, "And Yahweh, I will praise his word, and Yahweh, I will put my trust. I will not fear what flesh can do unto me." Okay, so King David understood this, right? And this is how we got to understand it as well. Every day they rest my word, all their thoughts are evil against me, Talaka. Every day they rest my word, all their thoughts are against me for evil. Okay? And so this is why these a lot of these women who think that, you know, the cops is on their side, so on and so forth, they're gonna get that rude awakening according to Ezekiel chapter 9, and then specifically the 4th chapter on down a little bit. Okay? So this is why when it says slay utterly old and young, both maid and little children, this is how they gonna do it. Okay? In verse 6, they gather themselves together, they hide themselves, they mark my step when they wait for my soul. All right, when they say they mark my step, this is what they with flock camera, this is how they mark your steps right here. So King David even knew from the beginning. Shall they escape by iniquity and thy anger? Cast down the people, O Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. All right, and so we hope and pray that Yahweh Shai will protect us in these times, man. Because they definitely coming down having great wrath with these many devices that's going to take place. So, you know, that's pretty much the point. Lord willing, was edifying. With that, let me give all praise and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakadash. I want to give double honor to my elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who were well in teaching us the truth 100% securely. Shalom, Shalom, Kwam Yasharali, Shalom.